afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the third and final of the 2Apr Working at Home webinars. Today's focus is going to be on well-being. We've looked at the network. Last week we looked at tools, and this week we're going to look at well-being and you as an individual. With many of us, we've faced the longest stint of being physically isolated and socially isolated as well. So in today's session, we are going to look at inspiration and tips on how you can overcome bubble fever, which we're calling it, and keep on top of your mental health and well-being while working at home. Even at level 3 now, we're going to be working here for quite a while. We're hoping to do an interactive session, so I hope you'll be involved. We'll be getting you to recognize and understand your emotions, and we'll then provide you with the tools and tactics for flipping or managing any negative emotions to boost your well-being. So without any further ado, let's head over and I'll introduce you to the two speakers. So our two speakers today, our first one is Philippa Powell. Philippa is the Organisational Development Advisor at Diversity, Inclusion and Wellbeing. I had to look at the notes for that one from Chorus. And a nutrition and wellbeing coach at the Wellbeing Junkie. And we also have Maria, who is an organisational psychologist with Fuel 50. So I'm going to hand over straight over to Philippa.
Alrighty.
Excellent. I think I'm actually going to start with the first one, Philippa. So thank you very much, Craig, for the introduction. And thank you all for joining the session today. So as you can see, there am I. I actually do get changed out of this Fuel 50 t-shirt, believe it or not. But my name's Maria Potter. I'm an industrial organisational psychologist. And ultimately what that means is that I help individuals go to work happy on a daily basis. So I'm a psychologist with the best interests of employees at heart. So I work at a company called Fuel 50, which is a career pathing software, and that's my team of fantastic consultants. Nice to meet you all. Over to you, Philippa.
Alrighty, so this photo was taken a few weeks ago of me, and it highlights one of the ways I've been overcoming bubble fever during lockdown. So I'm a self-confessed wellbeing junkie, and I like to call myself a bit of a competitive, maybe amateur CrossFitter, yogi. I'm a runner, snowboarder, and a real food enthusiast, to name a few of my healthy addictions. And then to keep me out of trouble, I've got 2 jobs. So my first one, when I'm explaining my corporate job to my nephews, I say that I Google rainbow and unicorn photos, I organise tea parties, and encourage people to wear gumboots and pink shirts to work. But for this audience, I play a key role in creating an enviable employee experience at Chorus by leading our wellbeing, diversity and inclusion programs. So I've gone from being the good old days of being the fun police to now policing the fun. And simply, I help make Chorus an awesome and healthy place to work. And then last year, I merged my passion with my profession by starting up my own wellbeing and nutrition coaching business, the Wellbeing Junkie. So to get started, we want to get a gauge on your emotions that you've been feeling over the last few weeks of lockdown. And so this awesome little emotion and feeling wheel has a huge range of different positive and negative emotions that we may have been experiencing. So Craig now is going to bring up a poll on your screen, and we'd like you to choose a statement that best describes your lockdown emotions. So we'll just give you about 30 seconds to go through that. Alrighty, I reckon that's probably enough time. So Craig, if you could please now share the results. Okay, what have we got here? Sorry, I just need to move something out the way. Might be a second. Okay, so most people have been swinging between positive and negative emotions. Yeah, good to see that 39% mostly positive. Amazing that we've got no one on here that's mostly negative emotions, so that's really great to hear. And then 17% no different to normal. So, you know, swinging between positive and negative emotions, it's actually totally okay to feel a bit all over the show at the moment. You know, each you know, each day is completely different. And, you know, if we think about the start, you know, it was all very scary. And, you know, when we get announcements from Jacinda, there's all these different new things and rules and stuff that we've been having to deal with. So that's really great. So now basically just wanting to let you know that today's webinar is aimed to help you build your mental fitness by managing your emotions and learning how to flip these negative emotions to boost your mental well-being. So it's going to continue to be an interactive session today via the chat function. And just wanted to let you know that we appreciate some of the questions we may ask you may be a little bit sensitive. So if you'd like to remain anonymous, you can do this by clicking on participants down the bottom of your Zoom screen. And you can find your name, I think it should be the first one, and you can click on more and you can rename to anonymous if you wanted to. So now I'm going to hand you over to Maria.
Excellent, thank you so much, Philippa. So I think what this poll has shown us is that it's undeniable that you are going to go through a wave of emotions, that you have been and you will continue to as we move through lockdown and even into just your normal life. And so we've seen there's been a huge amount of psychological research that's looked at what differentiates those individuals who really flourish and do well in the face of change and challenge. And how does that differ from those individuals who actually find it quite challenging and it has a negative impact on their well-being and even their relationships? So at the heart of this research, or one of the elements that has popped up, is this concept of emotional intelligence. Now, for a lot of you on the call, you've probably heard of this before, which is fantastic. It was a model and a concept that was brought up in the mid-1990s by Daniel Goleman. And let me talk you through the key principles behind it. So the key thing to note is those individuals who are happier and more satisfied at work and in their personal lives have a tendency to have high self-awareness, which means that they're able to understand and recognize their own emotions. And then with that self-awareness, they're then able to control and regulate their emotions. So it's a deep connection between yourself, your emotions, and then being able to flip or change them depending on the situation at hand. The final part, the blue part, is social awareness. So not only having that awareness of your emotions and how they affect you and being able to flex them, but being empathetic and attuned to others around you and their emotions, and then being able to, through coaching, mentoring, communication, teamwork, being inspirational, being able to support others through challenge and change. So I'm personally a huge psychologist of the emotional intelligence model for a couple of reasons. So the first one is that it's tried and tested. We know that those people who are highly connected with their emotions and can control and manage them are happier and more satisfied. Yay, that's good. But the other thing that I love about it is it's extremely empowering, because each and every one of you can learn the skills associated with self-awareness and self-management. So it doesn't matter what your genes are, what environment you've been brought up in, or where you are today. If you want to be happier and more satisfied in your situation today in lockdown, or as your life emerges and you're faced with challenges and changes in the future, that self-awareness and self-management of your emotions is going to be critical for maintaining positivity and satisfaction. And that's what our session's really grounded in today. So when Philippa and I were looking at what are the different emotions that are frequently cited, that have been the most over the last 4 to 6 weeks as we've been in this pandemic, is fear and frustration. So I'm going to talk a little bit about fear, then I'm going to flip it over to Philippa and she's going to talk about frustration. So what is fear? Now there's lots and lots of words to describe fear, lots of clusters of emotions that fit under this. It can be scared, feeling scared, nervous, helpless, worried, anxious and frightened, all of which, when I say those words, you may have gone through in the last few weeks. Now the emotion of fear is actually a very primitive human emotion, and it's one that our ancestors have to thank for their survival, because it's our response to threat. We tend to go straight into that fight or flight, response. And so this is really where fear lands. So and a lot of people, as I said before, are recognizing the feelings of anxiety, being frightened, worried, or helpless. So now that we're understanding that emotion, how it feels, and how to categorize it, let's take a look at what's causing fear in a lot of Kiwis, and in fact humans across the globe today in this pandemic. So we know that fear has been stimulated in a lot of us through the prospect of widespread illness. Am I going to be negatively impacted in terms of, am I going to get sick? Is my family members, are my neighbours? Of course, that had a huge, started a fire of fear in a lot of us. As times progress, we've also seen that the Employee Assistance Program New Zealand, they've looked at a lot of research, and they've looked at the most frequent calls coming into their centres to support employees and Kiwis. And they've found that one of the most cited issues or challenges that we're facing is the worry, the concern, and the anxiety that's been triggered by job loss, underlying job security, and the knock-on effect in terms of financial concerns. So I know that myself, my family, a lot of my friends are being faced with pay cuts, if not reduced hours, right down to some have lost their jobs. And so understandably, this is a real emotion. You've got real challenges and changes that are happening which are causing, fear and concern. We've also got a number of people who are talking about, well, this is the challenges that I face now, but how will this continue in the future in terms of our New Zealand economy and also the world economy? Now, before Philippa and I launch into ways in which the literature, and from our experience, we know are great tactics for supporting you to flip your mood from fear to something more productive, we wanted to pause and we wanted to get your ideas first, because we know that if we all share, we co-create solutions, you'll get a lot more from it. So have you or anyone you know over this period experienced fear? And if so, what did they do, or how did you support them to flip out of that feeling? How have they turned it from a sometimes negative and overwhelming emotion to something that they felt they had control over? So if I could ask you to share your ideas in the chat. Again, as Philippa said, simply change your name to anonymous and share with us your ideas of how you or someone you know has flipped out of the feeling of fear. Fire away. Are any of those coming in? Beautiful. Excellent. So we've got one of the ideas here come through as practicing gratitude. So that's really taking a step back and looking at the positive things that exist in your life today. That could be the fact that maybe you do have a job even though it's reduced hours. It could be a beautiful meal at the end of the day, or your favorite smoothie. It could be just the sunshine on your face, or the grass on your arms as you're lying looking up at the sky. So, slowing down sometimes the negative talk and the worry that's overwhelming you, and looking to the things that are really that you should be pleased and happy for in your life. Philippa, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was just, I stole my thunder a little bit. I'll talk about that soon. But I think that what I've really appreciated is just the simple things that we take for granted. And I just, I'm in my bubble with my flatmate and my good friend. And I actually out loud say to her, I'm just so grateful to have you here living with me, because I would actually be, I'd be really struggling just here on my own. So yeah, I could definitely relate to practicing gratitude right now.
Nice. Hey Philippa, there's another one in here around learning something new. Did you want to give a shout on that one as well?
Yeah, learning something new. I'm also going to talk to that as well. So perhaps we'll leave that one to my talk.
Okay.
And but we could talk about practicing mindfulness.
Yeah, I can give that one a crack. Me personally, being a psychologist, I'm constantly reading literature on what's good for human brains, human wellness. Now, mindfulness comes up endlessly and I have arguably one of the most busiest minds on this planet. So for me, I wrestle at the fact of practicing mindfulness. I've been roped into doing it, but there are a huge amount of psychological, positive, impacts as a result of mindfulness. It's about slowing down, taking deep breaths, and living in that, stopping the worry and the insistent negative mind chatter, and really being present. So for those of you who have practiced mindfulness before or haven't breached it yet, there are so many fantastic apps out there to support you in bringing mindful practices into your day, which will have psychological impacts. Some have even quoted some more recent research has said it can be as effective as a low dose of an antidepressant. So if you want to keep wrestling with it, try mindfulness. It's phenomenal. Someone's just given a shout out here around turning off the news. And this is absolutely something that's critically important right now. Now, there's a statement that's come out by UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, because of the prolific junk and fake news that's been spread in social media and the internet at the moment. So if you look at the news just 2 days ago, we had President Trump standing up, referencing the injection of disinfectant into your body to alleviate coronavirus. Now, this is not true, and people are reading and listening to this stuff and taking very, very, heeding bad advice from fake news and misinformation. There's now a whole huge amount of theories about where the virus has come from, and a great piece of advice that someone has provided here, and one that's very much supported by people who are leading the charge in eliminating this virus, is don't believe everything you read, and if anything, turn off the news, because you'll probably find it'll be less destructive for you over the long run.
Yeah, I can relate to that, and I find that the times where my mental well-being does start to dip is actually being triggered by something that I have read it or heard it. I've fallen into that trap, or I've been having conversations with even my mum or my dad or my brother, and they can, if my mum listens to talk back and all that kind of stuff, which I'm trying to coach her on, and it really does trigger you into that. You start thinking about whatever they're sharing with you, and so what I've decided to do is I've got 2 sources that I've chosen, and so at Chorus we have a wonderful update every couple of days, or when it's appropriate, and they share the key information from the government.
Nice.
And then every now and then I just listen to Jacinda's update. So obviously I was listening to it when she was giving the announcement around level 3, and I've actually chosen not to listen to it again until the 11th of May. I just don't need it.
Yeah, I do find whenever I listen to Jacinda, I kind of cry a bit because she's just so inspirational.
Yes.
The massive Jacinda, whatever she says jump, I say how high. She's been incredible, hasn't she? So I actually find her quite uplifting. Excellent. So any other thoughts? Please pop them into the chat for us in regards to, tips, advice of how you or anyone you know has flipped out of fear.
I love what Amanda's saying there about being aware of what you consume on all levels, and food. So I'm going to talk to that in my session. But yeah, absolutely, that's a good one.
Yeah, absolutely. Quality in means quality out.
Yeah, maybe should we switch over to some of your hot tips?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so these actually touch on a lot of the great thoughts that you guys have provided us with, but don't catastrophize. A really, really important one, particularly if you are feeling anxious or feeling nervous. An anxious mind is not necessarily a rational mind. You'll have a large and loud volume of negative chatter, and it can be very consuming. And it can mean that you don't make good decisions. So an anxious brain needs to be closed down, and the way of doing that is by asking some simple questions. So, is this worry realistic? What's the worst thing that could happen here? And what can I do to prepare? So by slowing it down and trying to be really grounded in what's happening right now and what can I do to control it is a fantastic and simple way of managing that stress and anxiety. The next one, focus on what's in your control. Do not expend large amounts of effort and worry thinking about the future that isn't here yet. Rather, expend that energy thinking about the moment here and now. What can I do to take control today in this moment in time, rather than expending effort on something that may not even eventuate? Another one's other people on the line who do have a tendency to be quite nervous, and for that nervous chatter and worry to extended amounts of time, grab a journal and write all these thoughts down. This journal is not intended to be published or to be shared with anyone. In fact, you can burn it if you want at the end of each page. The point of it is to get the chatter out, the nervous energy out onto a page and let it go. We've spoken about limiting what you read and listen to. And we've also talked about the practice of breathing and different techniques which they reference as self-soothing. So things like putting on some nice aromas and oils, putting on nice soothing music, breathing, relaxing. The great one that I do often, and it was quite funny, Philippa and I were meant to catch up last week to prep for this session. And I got in, and I was sat outside, and I had just been hammered by work because my client's based in the US. So I start at 6 and I tend to finish my calls at about midday. And so I'd had 2 or 3 days like that. And Philippa and I were meant to catch up. She emailed me saying, you know, I'm going to sit outside in the sunshine. And I was exactly the same. So it's really about listening to your body and doing the thing that you need in that point in time. And it was interesting to see that Philippa and I very much take a similar approach. I lay down on the grass, flat out in a starfish, and just looked up at the clouds for 45 minutes, and just being close to the earth just made me, it was my method of self-soothing, and it helped me disconnect from all of the stress and the worry that I had at work that day. Another great call that somebody's already mentioned is that concept of practicing gratitude. I'm very much anchored in emotional intelligence, is that ability to see the positive side of things, of people, and of situations. So flip it. As this whole session is grounded in, if you're feeling negative or overly strong emotions that you think could derail you from achieving what you want to achieve in that day or in that moment, it's about recognizing that emotion and then being able to flip it. And a great simple way of doing that is trying to see the positive side of things. And we've also touched on the concept of practicing mindfulness or meditation. I'm not going to lie, I have a really inability to touch my toes. I'm a runner, and I've been in the lounge doing some Les Mills yoga on demand classes. And it's crazy to think that it's exercise and it's a form of meditation at the same time. So trying new things, right? Excellent. Philippa, I'll now pass on to you.
Cool, thanks Maria. So I am going to focus on frustration, something that I have personally been experiencing over the last few weeks. So what exactly is it? Well, frustration occurs when we have an inability to change or achieve something. And we start to become annoyed because we have little or no control over the situation. And when we start to get frustrated, we can also become irritable and angry. And the scary thing is, I guess, that it actually has the potential to spiral into a state of depression if it goes too far. So if we could just flip over the slide and talk about what's causing frustration for many of us in New Zealand right now and across the world. So being restricted to your bubble, you know, if we had a thought, you know, a couple of months ago that we're going to be told by the Prime Minister that you have to stay at home, like, it just would have been incomprehensible. So, you know, being restricted to your property and only being able to go for a walk in your short neighbourhood is going to be frustrating, because we're so used to going to cafes and to work and to see our grandmother and all of these different places. So, you know, it is really challenging. And, you know, that needing to stay at home, you know, for some people, they might be embracing it. So on the most part, I'm kind of embracing it. But there are people that are not used to working at home. And it's, you know, the setup between, you know, you've got many people in your bubble that are working at home, you've got kids roaming around, you know, it's really, really challenging. Or some people just, I was reading a comment in our engagement survey from last week, and someone said, no, don't like working at home, working is working in the office. And so, you know, it's going to be really hard for those people and frustrating. You know, and that inability to change your environment, not just physically, but also psychologically. And what I've been finding quite hard and really noticing is not being able to get the space that we're used to. And, you know, I just kind of thought, well, actually, I never thought about it. But until this happened, I realized that I used to work at home twice a week, and my flatmate would be at work, and I'd have the whole house to myself. And on a normal day, I'd get home from work and she would be at the gym, and I'd have the space to cook my dinner, and all of a sudden that's gone. And she's here all the time, and also for her, I'm here all the time, unless we're going walking. So, you know, that is really challenging. So we've had to, you know, get really clear with each other as to our, you know, what we're up to, and really respect each other and be considerate and give each other the opportunity to have some time at the house on our own. Boredom definitely causes frustration, and this is probably where I had my first case of what I call bubble fever, or my first meltdown as such, which was during the Easter break. I think it happened on Easter Sunday. You know, like, I was kind of on fire on Friday and Saturday, doing all these cool things and Zooming friends and having drinks and going on massive walks around the inlet and working out with my flatmate and cooking and baking. And then I woke up on Sunday and I did my workout and I did my yoga, and I thought, what am I going to do now? And I'm a sort of, you know, bit of a nerd. I like my to-do lists and stuff. I looked on my to-do list and there was all this crap like, you know, weeding and tidying the garage. And I thought, I don't want to do that. And I felt for the very first time in probably like 10 years bored. And it was really, really hard. Another thing that people will be getting frustrated with is the repetition. And I don't know if you can all relate, but lockdown has felt a little bit like Groundhog Day sometimes, you know? Like I wake up and I go, oh yeah, that's right. This is happening again. I'm going to go downstairs into my gym and work out on my own again. I'm going to come up, I'm going to start working at home at my laptop on my own again. I'm going to do my normal things, I'm going to finish work, and it's like the same stuff. Go for a walk, Zoom with friends, cook dinner, you know, it can get very repetitive being in that same place all the time. Another thing is other people's behaviour, and you know, once preparing for this, I was thinking, yeah, there has, you know, it's quite interesting right now to be on any kind of Facebook community group. There's a lot of kindness, and there's also a lot of bitching going on, to be honest. And, you know, I've kind of experienced, you know, people are getting very judgy when it comes to the supermarket. And, you know, my best friend sent me a message when she'd been a few weeks ago saying that some lady told her off for being too slow. I mean, who says that in a pandemic? You know, people stockpiling the whole toilet paper stuff. Another one was, you know, leaky bubbles. I had a lady, she was on one of our mental fitness network calls at Chorus, and she had this issue where a stepson was going to see his friends, and the stepfather, or the father, sorry, was kind of okay with that, but she wasn't. So that was really, really challenging for this person. And then the other one, people not keeping their distance. So when we went into lockdown, I was out walking and a guy was approaching, and I had my headphones on and, you know, loud music and whatnot. And I was trying my best to keep away, but I was still getting used to this. And I realised that I better take these headphones out, and he actually was telling me off. And I was like, actually, thank you for letting me know that, because I'm still learning. And you know, I was seeing it on the community pages as well, you know, like, round this track, you know, people shouldn't be on there. So, you know, that has been quite frustrating, having to deal with other people's behaviour. And then finally, relationship challenges. So, you know, I'm sure many of you can relate. I just sort of talked about that challenge with, you know, the relationship I have with my flatmate. And EAP, yeah, sent through some information around pre-lockdown. A relatively large percentage of employees were visiting due to difficulties with their personal relationships, mostly them being with partners, but also challenges with children and extended family, which we can all probably relate to from time to time. But now they're actually seeing new relationship issues that have been brought on by the challenges of managing, you know, the bubble or the family dynamic amidst this, you know, work at home crazy environment that we're in. And more seriously, some are actually feeling a sense of frustration at not being able to leave a deteriorating relationship during this time of physical confinement. So, you know, it is really serious for some people out there. And as we get to the end of the presentation, there are some support places that you can go to review yourself, or people you know are experiencing some of these challenges. So now what we're going to do is the same little exercise again. Would love to for you to share your ideas on how you personally or someone you know have flipped out of that feeling of frustration. So what have you done to get you out of that frustrated, bored, irritable or angry mindset? So get you to open your thoughts into the chat and we'll have a little discussion. Come on. How about then I'll talk about my frustration to start with. So the first thing that I did on that Sunday of Easter where I was experiencing bubble fever was I just decided I'd cope by eating and drinking. You're probably thinking, what on earth? She's a wellbeing junkie, she's a nutritionist, they don't drink alcohol, they don't eat crap. Yes, they do. So that's how I dealt with it on the Sunday. But I guess what I have, you know, reflected on from then is that's really not helpful at all, because I felt like shit the next day. So it's really, for me, when I get frustrated, I just go outside. Get outside, go for a walk, clear the head, fresh air, vitamin D, maybe, you know, chat to someone on the phone, or just turn it all off, go into the bush. No. What about you, Maria?
I've got a couple of suggestions that have come in on the chat.
Oh, cool.
First one's very much aligned with actually something we spoke about in the previous one around fear, and it's about that locus of control. So understanding and accepting I cannot control everything. So thinking about what can you control, focusing on that, particularly right here in the now, rather than worrying about the future, is a fantastic way to alleviate that feeling of frustration. Beautiful. Thank you.
Awesome. So Sandy, ignore my list of things to do and watch a movie instead and not feel guilty. Hallelujah.
One thing, I love that one. Thanks for sharing. For me, a big component of that is the not feeling guilty part. I think, you know, being able to acknowledge that sometimes if I do just put all my to-do lists aside and do something, acknowledging that I will feel guilty, and then being like, no, but it's okay, and rationalizing that means that you can get a lot of enjoyment, and it can help to alleviate some really uncomfortable emotions. Love that one. Thanks, Sandy.
Awesome. Daphne made time every day to go out in her neighborhood, time outside exploring places I didn't know existed. I love that. I have found so many new tracks in my neighborhood that I discovered there's a horse that lives probably about 200 to 300 meters away from me. I don't know how you get to it, but I saw a horse, so that was pretty cool. What else have we got?
I've got one down the bottom here, and I love this. And it's about taking full responsibility for myself and my feelings of frustration. And that's really about this whole, again, back to the concept of emotional control and awareness and owning it. So being like, I'm feeling this, this is what it feels like, this is where it's come from, and I'm okay with it. Sit with it and own that it's yours, and not splattering it on the walls and it you know, having a negative impact on all those people around you. So spot on. feeling the frustration, owning it, and then being productive to work through it.
Yeah, and I can relate to that, because I know that when I start to get frustrated, I do start to blame others or kind of get into that victim mentality. And I had a scenario where I was getting really frustrated at work, and I had the weekend to kind of reflect on it and go, well, the only way that you're actually going to get rid of these feelings is to, it came back to the control thing. They've made the decision, you're not the decision maker. How can you best work with the decision that was made? And I was able to then go in on Monday with a kind of a compromise.
Nice.
And I wanted 4 sessions and I got 2, so it all worked out. And I had all this worry and anxiety for no reason. So we just need to, go back to what's in your control.
Hey, Philippa, one's just come up, which is very, very close to your heart. So someone's used a statement from Jimmy Hunt, and I know you did a webinar with him last week on mental.
Yeah.
And it's saying here, being brutally effing honest. So tell me a little bit more about what you delivered with Jimmy Hunt and the advice that he would give, obviously aligned to the statement.
Yeah. So we're very fortunate to have Jimmy Hunt. He's a mental fitness change maker or trainer, come and speak to us last Friday. And he does talk about in his book, A Guide to Live More Awesome, and in his talks around, that brutal effing honesty. And it kind of goes back to that point that Amanda was making around taking full responsibility, is that sometimes we just need to actually, we need to just label it. We need to stop, playing the victim and actually just be honest. I'm feeling like shit. My mental health is deteriorated. I feel crappy. I'm having negative thoughts, and just own it. And then once we've got that awareness, it's about what do we do with it. So there needs to be action. Stop ruminating and do something with it. Yeah.
Beautiful. And again, Amanda's built on that about her taking full responsibility, and she's called it radical candor. Now, I don't know if anyone here on the call has experienced how you feel as a result of owning your emotion and fronting up to someone that you may have negatively impacted as a result of it. So Amanda said here, I was starting to put blame on my husband. So he was kind of getting you hadn't categorized it, owned it, and diffused the emotion or changed the emotion. But have you ever experienced where, as you said, Philippa, hey, I'm really frustrated, I'm sorry, ignore me, I'm going to sleep on it and I'll see you tomorrow. Don't ignore everything I say. Like, for me, owning it and being really open and honest to other people around me, it is probably one of the most empowering and proud moments that I have in a day, is when I can do that. And I'm not sure if anyone...
and I can relate to that.
Yeah, far away.
Yeah, so as we were going into lockdown and, getting used to these rules, my flatmate went and was going to visit her mother, and I was like, hit her up and said, I'm not sure that you're allowed to do that. And, and it really had a nerve with her, which is absolutely fair enough, given she was worried about her job, and, it was, it's a very scary time. And she went out for the walk and she left, and I just thought, oh God, this is horrible. That feeling of like when you're having a fight with your partner, or it just felt really horrible. She came back and she didn't come in, and I was just like, I was building up. So I went and saw her and just said, hey, look, I feel the tension. I'm really sorry if I upset you by questioning you about going to visit your mum, but my understanding is these are the rules, but please, I might be wrong. And we had a really good conversation, and we had a hug, and I said, I'm so grateful that you're in my bubble, and had a bit of a, tear, but we moved on. Nice. It was scary, but it had to be done. So sometimes we just need to be courageous and, just bite the bullet and say what we need to say to move on.
Yeah, I always use the phrase, it takes strength to show weakness. So for you to go to someone and go, I've been a dick, or, I'm sorry, this is how I saw it, and it's not necessarily the right way. I was X, Y, and Z, most empowering thing. Yeah, nice. Always helpful to say your intention up front for the hard conversations. Thanks.
Yeah.
There's also some neat ones that are coming in here about, and this is something that you spoke about before, Philippa, is about identifying when you're starting to get frustrated and then avoiding letting it escalate. So that's the identification of the emotion and then using tactics to change or control it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. And Roger, yeah, dreaming about an end of lockdown road trip. And it's great to imagine things and start planning, because we're going to be out of this, right? Yeah. Eventually this is going to be over. So something that I've been doing is, I was supposed to go to Bali in September for my very first yoga wellness retreat. Won't be going. So I've been chatting to my friend about what does that wellness retreat week look like potentially in the Bay Islands. I've never been, always wanted to go. So it's great to kind of spend that time dreaming and imagining and planning, because we can still do that right now. It's in our control.
Yeah. And when we're thinking about, be it lockdown, yes, this time will pass. And even if you look at it from a more micro emotional feeling, if you're in a funk and you're feeling frustrated, just like lockdown, that emotion will pass in time. It's not fixed. It will leave you, you know, it's not going to be with you forever. So just in the interest of time, thanks everyone for your fantastic suggestions coming in. Was there any points on the slide, Philippa, that you wanted to deep dive in that you don't think we've covered yet?
I think one thing that I wanted to share, I mean, obviously prioritizing your health and well-being would be my top, thing right now. And I just wanted to share with you something that actually came to me today. So at Chorus, we are working with John Kirwan to promote his new mental well-being app, Mentor. So if you haven't heard of that or had a go, please download it. It's fantastic. And so this morning we played a video of our CEO interviewing John Kirwan, and he asked a question that really sunk into me that I wanted to share. And I won't quite get it word for word, but this is my sort of interpretation of it. He said, would you like to improve 10% better physically? So let's think about that. I'm pretty sure all of you right now are going, yeah, I'd like to be a little bit fitter, maybe a little bit stronger, perhaps more energetic, perhaps a bit more toned, maybe a little bit slimmer, or all of the above. Who knows? So let's think about this. What about being 10% better mentally? We don't think about it. But what would it be like to focus on our mental fitness? Imagine being 10% more confident, 10% more positive, optimistic, resilient, courageous, motivated, consistent, committed, happier, determined, passionate. Imagine what you could do if you were 10% more of all of that, or whatever you chose to be. Becoming then, stronger, fitter, eating better, all that stuff, that'd be a breeze if you're more committed, more determined, more resilient. So just really wanted to share that with you, because that was a penny drop for me. And some of the stuff that we've been doing, some of the stuff that Jimmy Hunt talks about, is really around mental fitness. And it's very easy for some of us, I don't speak, I shouldn't speak for everyone, is it's easy to get physically well. We can eat a bit better, eat more vegetables. Many of us go to the gym or go running or cycling, or it's easy to do that, but the mental fitness is harder. So he poses the question, what's in your mental fitness toolkit? So we've talked about a lot of stuff today that you could actually put into that toolkit. But I sort of would ask you to go away from this session and have a bit of a think, a bit of a stock take about what is it you're doing on a daily or weekly basis that's helping you to get your mental well-being 10% better, or might even be just 1%. Like it's slow incremental steps. So yeah, that would probably be where I leave it. I'll just quickly run through. Is there anything else on those? Oh, and just maybe the last one I'll share with you is to separate work from play. I mean, you may have heard people talking about this, but one thing that I do is I actually commute to work, and that commute is a beautiful walk somewhere in my neighbourhood. It might be 10 minutes, it might be an hour after I've done my workout, and sometimes it's with a podcast, sometimes it's music, sometimes it's mindful and it's without, and it's listening to the bird song. And I also do that after work as well, just to flip out of work mode and into play. Cool. Anything you wanted to add, Maria, around flipping out of your frustration?
No, sounds good. But when we're always thinking about well-being, it's about exactly what someone referenced before. Everything that goes with the inputs means that you'll have better outputs mentally and physically. And I love the idea of thinking about it not just as in food and activity, but also connecting with others, because they're critically important to your well-being.
So as I mentioned earlier, here is just a few ideas on some great places to go to for some expert support. So obviously your company's employee assistance program, if you are fortunate to have one. Healthline, in terms of your physical health right now. If you are concerned that you potentially have symptoms of COVID, please do get in touch with Healthline. And then if you are experiencing, a significant dip in your mental health and well-being, or you're struggling, 1737, so you can call that number or you can text it anytime for support from counsellors. There's Lifeline, Youthline, the Samaritans, and Shine is available for domestic violence support. So if you or anyone you know is experiencing challenges with relationships, they are the people to contact.
So we wanted to wrap up the session by asking you to just share with us your light bulb moment that you've got as a result of this session. So as a result of our conversation today, our pure candor, as well as sharing some tactics that have been referenced by yourselves as well as research, what's the key takeaway for you thriving in your bubble from today and onwards, and as life continues to throw challenges and change at us? If you could pop that into the chat, that'll be a great way for us to wrap up the session. I've actually got one note that's popped up here from Amanda. In the rush to get back to normal, use the time to consider which parts of normal are worth rushing back to. My penny drop. Awesome. Thank you.
I love that. And actually, I did skip a bit that I was going to talk about, which relates to that. And, for me personally, and I think many people that I've spoken to, there's this big conversation around, I actually quite like working at home. You might be someone that's never done it before, or you'd like to do more of it because you're really enjoying not commuting a couple hours a day, or whatever that looks like, that gives you more balance in your life. And so I definitely recommend, thinking about what that might look like as we get back to normal, and having a conversation with your manager or people leader around how you'd like to work more flexibly. I mean, I think that the majority of organisations in New Zealand are up with the play on that. So yeah, definitely, have the courage and let them know what you think would work for the business and for yourself.
Beautiful. Another one that's come in, slowing down and reflecting about my priorities. So again, as Philip has just referenced, so many of us have learned something about ourselves, be it positive or negative, but why don't we use that to increase that 10% of wellness into the future?
And something that I've sort of been reflecting on is, and one of my social media posts on Monday was, enough is enough. So for me, level 4 was actually a little bit out of control. And, I ate too much ice cream, drank a little bit too much alcohol. That's probably the worst part for me. And so I kind of go, there was all these excuses, and it was COVID comfort eating, and it's all good and be kind to yourself. But for me, on Monday, I decided enough is enough. And I'm not putting up with the excuses anymore. We're going back into normal life. And level 3 is now the line in the sand to go, sort your shit out. That's me.
Awesome. Some other takeaways from other people on the session today is the light bulb of separating my work from play. So keeping the two, what they reference decompartmentalizing. So using methods to do that, to create that separation. Another great way of getting rid of that, what was it called? The Groundhog Day feeling.
Oh, yeah.
Someone else has said adapt to survive. So it's about being adaptable, absolutely. Slowing down, reflecting about my priorities, thinking about what's in their mental toolkit. Another great one, not feeling guilty or not achieving everything you want, for not achieving everything you wanted to achieve, or the pressure you feel from others to do certain things.
There's actually a great article that Ariana Huffington shared on her LinkedIn profile around human beings, not human doing. So yeah, check that one out.
And someone else has said here that it's really comforting to know that other people are feeling the same way as me and they're going through similar emotions. So it's okay. There is no judgment in going through feelings of fear, anxiety, frustration. That's life. And it's about recognizing them and then trying to do what you can to regulate them so they don't take control of you and your relationships and your positive well-being. Anyone else got any more light bulb moments before we go on to our final slide?
Looks like we've exhausted them. So yeah, thank you so much everyone for coming along and listening to our session today. It's been good fun, some really awesome discussions. So we'd love to connect with you offline. So there's the details to find us via email or LinkedIn. So it'd be really cool to connect. Thank you so much. And now over to you, Craig.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, kia ora. And thanks, Maria and Philippa. Great session. And you've got the contact details up there. We'll leave those there for a few minutes. I'm going to ask Helene from Chorus to pop on the line for a minute and just say a few words. Just we've been very thankful for Chorus's support through this series. We've had 3 events. So Helene, do you want to say a few words?
Yes, hi there. First of all, thank you, Philippa and Marija, for today. That was really fun. Really enjoyed it. That was super interactive. And somehow I feel a little bit better after listening to this. So that's cool. And thank you, Craig, as well, for putting also this together just for a very authentic story. I was doing some shopping at the Countdown on the top of my street when we were having a chat with Craig and when the PM was doing the announcement about the same time. And I saw hundreds of cars coming to the supermarket and I'm like, what's happening? So then we have a chat and we were like, okay, we need to deliver something useful for the community. What can we do? And that's basically how the story of the webinar started. And I have to say in the last 3 weeks, we had fantastic speakers from Connect NZ, Microsoft, Lillian Grace last week from Figure NZ, Kurt, that most of you know, Head Hyde and Philippa from Chorus, and you, Marija, from Triple 50. So thank you so much for sharing your experience, your knowledge, but also for being authentic, because I think this is super important, especially in these times. That's what we connect with. And from my experience and also on what I was doing at Chorus in the last 4 weeks. So we've all been going through a lot, and I'm quite amazed to see how the industry, the different stakeholders have been working together to deliver the best connectivity to New Zealand. And I'm quite amazed of that. So that was a massive amount of work. But I mean, this period also showed that people can really and truly work together just to help each other and support the nation. So that's really great to see that. So I really hope that these 3 webinars were useful. I believe, Craig, that they are going to be online very soon, right? If people want to watch it again.
Yeah, thank you, Helene. Yes, the videos are on, will be on the last 2 weeks already on our YouTube channel. So if you go to YouTube and search for 2Ans, you'll find our channel. All our webinars that we've been doing since lockdown occurred are on there. So all our CXO bites, all our interviews in this series, and anything that comes forward will go up there as well. We're also, just in the last couple of weeks, we've done a few sessions where we've created notes from some of our events as well. So the discussion we had with Lillian last week, if you're a Flint person, you'll get that in the newsletter next week. Just a couple of things that are coming up. this week, there's a Flint webinar tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock on negotiating in tough times. So you don't have to be a Flint or a future leader to participate in that. But Ian Scott from Randstad will be talking about answering questions like, well, how do you negotiate around reduced time and your pay during that period, and how do you ensure that you come out of that process still feeling whole and able to cope and to contribute. So he'll be doing things like that. Then on Friday at noon, we've got our weekly CXO Bites, which is a 25-minute interview this week. It's actually with JB Risselot, who is the Chorus CEO, and he's French as well, Helene. So we look forward to that.
Yes.
Yep.
It's five of us at Chorus, all in all. So yes.
And then next week, we're talking to Lily and Grace, separately from the conversation last week, but next week about leadership. So just before I go, anything else, Maria and Philippa, before I cut the session off?
No, huge thanks for everyone for joining, and think about your 10%. What can you do to be a better you? And hopefully this has helped you in that journey. Thanks all.
What a great question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much, and thank you all for joining. And once this is up, feel free to share it as wide as you like on social media, so that people can hear the great conversations we had. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Craig. Awesome job. Bye.